Hi, so today my guest is Jarod Greene, an accomplished executive in the tech industry and the new chief marketing officer of Vivun, the world's leading provider of AI powered pre sale software. He brings a unique blend of experience to his role, having started his career answering help calls at Gartner and working his way up to becoming a research director. From there, Jarod honed his marketing acumen at Cherwell Software, Optio, and Highspot, holding VP of product marketing roles and significantly contributing to their growth and success. Jarod has been instrumental in shaping effective go-to-market strategies and building meaningful customer relationships. Jarod, welcome.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah.
Let's set the stage here, Jarod. Could you walk us through first and foremost your early life, your education, any defining moments that really shaped who you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Early, my mother is a librarian. And so a lot of my childhood was spent locked in a library. Really fell in love with the idea of, all the information you need is around you. It kind of predates the web at scale, but the ability to tap into a book, a knowledge source, find what you needed was just always something that drew me in. And so even, early education was all about the resources you need are around you. And you just need to tap into them, find them, and contextualize them. So much of what I've done throughout, high school, even college, was just contextualizing just information. There's a set of information, set of resources. Not everybody understands that. You need a context. You need to make it make sense. And I've just always gotten a kick and always enjoyed being able to take these really complex topics, no matter what it was, and breaking it down into ways that make it make sense. And so the stage was set early for me to do that. And I can't think of any specific pivotal moment, but I always enjoy being able to unlock that for folks. In early days, I was a substitute math teacher, my first real job out of college, and the ability to kind of make complex topics make sense to seventh graders has just kind of stayed with me throughout my career. So those are the ones I think of most often in terms of the things that shaped me early.
Oh, that's great. So I'm sure as a kid, being in the library may not have always been the most fun when maybe your friends were out, playing ball. But I'm sure it's definitely led you down a path where you're at today. That said, like those early years, think back to them. Were there any sort of early indications that marketing was maybe a knack that you had? I knew you're a math teacher, so like, how did marketing come into the mix here?
Yeah, no clue around marketing. I did, as much as I was in the library, I got out once in a while. I did play ball. I did run around. I'm about 6'4". I did play basketball. But one of the early kind of pop culture memories for me, I don't know if you remember a movie with Eddie Murphy from the early 90s called Boomerang.
Mhm.
But Boomerang came out as a movie. Eddie Murphy was an ad executive. And I didn't know what exactly that entailed. I didn't know what it did. It just looked like a really cool job. He worked in a beautiful office. He worked around cool people. And then something about his character, Marcus Graham, spoke to me. And so it wasn't about a knack for marketing, but just an always kind of keen interest into what the discipline was and how you could get involved with it. But I never thought I'd be a marketer. Graduated from college with a sociology degree, getting an education. I never thought I'd be a marketer, but never thought the knack existed until I moved into a role where, again, I had to explain complex topics and subjects to a different audience, and the ability to contextualize it, make it relevant, make it make sense were just skills that just naturally, became part of that set. And the best marketers I know kind of do that for a living. They take their product, they take their brand, they take their service, and they make it make sense to the largest possible audience in a way that's like timely and relevant. So not so much the knack, but the idea of marketing came in the early 90s from an Eddie Murphy movie, strangely enough.
There you go. Well, that's a
Yeah.
first that I've heard Eddie Murphy inspiring someone to go into marketing. I love it though. So after you said you'd had a stint as a substitute math teacher, but really your career seems like it took off at Gartner, where you started, I guess, in a research department. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how it kind of led you down this path.
Yeah, sure. So, found a job at Gartner as a contact center support analyst. So the job was literally answering the phone. Thank you for calling Gartner. How may I route your call? I did the 11 to 8 shift. And because it was an East Coast company, Gartner's in Stamford, Connecticut, I worked the 11 to 8 and got a lot of calls from the West Coast. But if it wasn't from the West Coast, it wasn't coming at all. So the phones kind of died at night. The calls I did get were from, I learned now, like really angry like VC types. They assumed that they had access to the Gartner research because they had paid Gartner some subscription at some point. And they would call, you could tell they were on a deadline. They needed like market share data, they needed forecast information. And kind of my first couple of weeks was just saying like, they don't have access and I can route them to the tech center, but why are they so angry? Like these are just numbers. This is just research. And then I realized I had access to it. I started reading and consuming it, and then I couldn't put it down. I just recognized if I was sitting on something valuable and it reminded me a lot of the library where all of the resources were around me, I should just understand what it is I'm supporting. And that was my quiet time from 5 to 8 every night for about a year, was just reading the research. So when a position came around and said, okay, same job, right? Call center analyst, but except be the call center analyst for the research organization and really support them. I took that opportunity. And then from there, I was able to start to route calls and connect customers to analysts based on all that knowledge I had built. So I was really good at saying, okay, if your topic is this, it was virtualization was hot at the time. If you want to talk about x86 virtualization, you need to talk to Tom. And Tom's going to tell you this, this, and this. Tom's probably going to send you this research note and this research note. So here's some time to talk to Tom and let me know. And not only did those calls get booked quick, they got booked with just higher levels of satisfaction. Wow, your research department knows their stuff. And I kind of recognized, well, no, that wasn't a job specifically. My job was just to set the call up. But I had put so much context around it because I knew and it was accurate. And the analyst appreciated it because the customers were showing up more informed and had more context into the subject, as opposed to them having to take the first 10, 15 minutes to educate them. So kind of made my ranks as the research support specialist of choice. You know, if Jarod's setting your call up, you're going to be in good shape. Jarod has a question, get back to him. And then that drove a relationship and a dynamic with a research leader by the name of Ray Paquette, who just said, hey, I've had this crazy idea to home grow our own analysts. So rather than go to industry and find people, or rather than, kind of hope that they come our way, what if we just had our own farm system? And what if Gartner kind of grew analysts out of the research center, because you guys touch everything? And that's where it came. He really said, hey, I want you to cover space that, may not be the most fun, but it'll get you on a path. You'll become a research analyst, and we think you could do great work there. And that set off probably about a 4 or 5 year journey, Christian, of just what would it take to not come from industry, not come from the practitioner side, to actually go inform the market about this space. But I had a great mentor. I had great resources and peers who just took time to sow that knowledge into me and really taken the rest of it to, again, provide that construct of my own, unique flair on the market. So that's when that all began. And that was probably from 2008 to about 2014 were the Gartner days, but the early ones were the formative years about being a research specialist all the way up to a director when I left.
Wow, that's a really interesting path that that you took there, and such a great opportunity that you were given. And I believe we also make our own luck. So I'm sure the hard work that you had put in went noticed and put you into that position. So that's great. It's a great story. It sounds like you got an education working in there that you never maybe didn't even plan for when you had originally signed up, right?
Great education, and they paid me for it.
Yeah.
Right? I actually got a check to learn all that, and just to be at the coalface of where that intersection of technology and business just kind of was it was fun. Like I said, the space I had wasn't the most glamorous, but a little company called ServiceNow was kind of coming up on the scene, and they kind of revolutionized or changed the way we talked about service management at the time, and that was a great catalyst for change to now take investor inquiries on the prospectus and the health of ServiceNow's business. Like these were calls that like a 32-year-old kid wasn't getting and taking often, but I had that opportunity. But it was shaped by literally hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations I had with buyers and competitors and sellers at that point. So you're right. I do think luck's the intersection of preparation and opportunity. That happened, and I'm better for it. I'd encourage anybody who's in that path or in that seat now. Gartner's developed a phenomenal farm system to develop specialists into analysts. And I'd like to believe I was a part of that, but also had, the genius of Ray Paquette to say, this is what we're going to do. And he's continued to drive that. So shout out to Ray.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you spent about 10 years at Gartner, and now you ventured into product marketing at different software firms.
Yeah.
How did that transition come about?
Super weird. So when you're on the Gartner side, what tends to happen is not a secret, but most Gartner analysts either get offers to go work for vendors because you have an understanding of the target market and the audience they're trying to influence. You understand the technology, you understand the personas, and so that was the dance for a little while. I got a couple just kind of cups of coffee and outreach from a few of the vendors in the space, but nothing serious. Just saying, if you ever want to come over to the dark side, let us know. And a lot of it was, well, what would I do for you? And I didn't have the construct of like a go-to-market role because I had never been a go-to-market practitioner. I had only been a Gartner, contact center specialist turned analyst. And so I didn't have construct on like how to drive a go-to-market strategy, how to do an effective product launch, how to disposition a competitor. But I had some of the raw skills associated with it. And I had worked with so many of those leaders. I didn't know what product marketing was 10 years ago. I tell people this all the time. I didn't know what the discipline was at all. I just knew that if a company wanted to hire me for my skill set and I asked them what they believed the best use of my talents were, we literally wrote down a job description of all the things that I like to do and all the things that they would need. And so we talked about, positioning and messaging. I don't want to make sure that your messaging resonated with the target audience. Okay, got it. I want to make sure that you can position competitors. Okay, got it. I want to make sure that the product roadmap is informed by all that market intelligence we gather. Okay, got it, no problem. I want to drive some of the thought leadership agenda. I want to make sure that from a technology and thought leadership and evangelism platform, I'm a part of that. Okay, check, no problem. And so we wrote all that up, and it was almost like ChatGTP from a long time ago, but it was literally like, you want to do all these things and create the role. It was a product marketer. And it was just such a fit once I started to understand that discipline of, it's not your core demand gen function. It's not a comms function. It's not a direct customer marketing function. It's not an ops function, but it is the connective tissue throughout the organization. It's the place where all the storytelling and narrative and launch, all that lives. And so I didn't know what it was, but I knew the skills associated with it. And I just kind of made it mine. I just kind of took that JD and said, all right, this is what a VP of product marketing is all about. And I started applying the constructs and also clearly owning analyst relations and what that interface with Gartner and now the other firms was just a lot of fun. So spurred the transition just literally came from, here are the things I enjoy doing as an analyst that I'd like to continue doing on the vendor side to create value for the company. So that's where it came from. And it's a great path. I see a lot of analysts now going from analysts to, ownership of thought leadership for vendors, ownership of go-to-market strategy. I think it's a beautiful bridge.
Yeah, wow. Another great story. I'm loving this path that you've taken here. So
Yeah.
congrats for that.
Thanks.
So let's shift gears here a little bit here. I read a LinkedIn post that you recently made about coaching your daughter's Little League team. And I have experience doing the same thing with my daughter. So I'm really curious your perspective on how coaching, in your case, these young girls, how you've been able to translate that experience into your corporate life.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we all need good coaches. I've been blessed to have great coaches throughout my life from both athletics, from both professional and industry. I've always had people who have taken the time to give me insight, advice, just pearls of wisdom that have made me better. And I think that requires some level of paying it forward. Now you have to sow that insight and that wisdom on the next generation. It's the same for sports. I've always played sports. I've always been an athlete. I've always enjoyed the relationship between the coach and then the entire team in terms of how you hold people accountable, how you do what you say you're going to do. You can't, as an athlete, take plays off because you're actually hurting the whole team. And so to be able to kind of keep those life lessons from sports, from athletics, and then apply those to work and kind of the corporate environment, I think it's been a great catalyst for me. And I can absolutely see and kind of draw a straight line from the people I've worked with and had the best interactions with from their ability and kind of partnership on team sports about accountability, showing up, do what you say you're going to do, and kind of fighting for the common cause. So when I think about translating a lot of those things back to the girls that I coach, we talk a lot about that. They are coming in at a level where they're not the best, softball players that ever existed. They're learning the game. They're trying to understand the basics, the fundamentals. And as they go, they're going to get frustrated about their inability to do the things that other players can do. They're going to get frustrated about where they might fit in the lineup or play on the field. And the key is, hey, what's the work ethic? What's the ethos? What are the things you are going to do to get better every single day? And so we've applied those principles to the girls. The coach I coach with and we just have a simple philosophy. We want the girls to get better. We want the girls to have fun. And we want them to come out next year. And whether they play for us or for another team, we just want them to keep going and growing. Because again, their athletic careers are going to end at some point, but the lessons that they carry will stay with them forever. So I really do believe that strategies I've learned as an athlete kind of apply to my own corporate ones that apply right back to just being probably just a good human being and a good teammate. So they all connect, and the ability to coach in a way that shows people the North Star, what good looks like, meet them exactly where they are, and kind of tailor your approach to meet them as individuals is another lesson that's stripped in. So I enjoy coaching on all aspects, but I really enjoy getting to spend the quality time with my daughter as she develops her own skill sets and keeps these life lessons with her, hopefully forever.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. I've had a very similar experience with it, and I think one of the takeaways that I took as well was just really understanding the strengths. Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, and you have to coach differently for different people. And I think sometimes in
Mhm.
the corporate world, I forget that. Where in sports, it's a little more obvious that people might have strengths and weaknesses in certain areas. So that's something that I've took away, and I've tried to implement in my business here. So
100%. Yeah.
so, as we discussed here, you've got a fairly unconventional path to the C-suite here, and I'm really curious, what advice you might share for others that are listening or reading,
Yeah.
this content here on, you know, on if they may feel stagnant in their journey, like what you might share with them.
Sure. Yeah. I just take every opportunity you can to put yourself in uncomfortable spots. I think as a research analyst, you have to do that. You're going to have to meet with people that are going to question you, and meet with people that are going to ask you tough things and be frustrated where their dot is on the magic quadrant. You're going to have to go through all that. But I think each tough experience shapes you. And a lot of times, you notice from talking to so many folks and wearing the role yourself or doing the role yourself, a lot of what the C-suite about, it's just about violent accountability. Like, I'm holding you accountable for the strategy and the resources, and I'm giving you an expense envelope. I expect a return. Those are things that require you to get uncomfortable and to be in uncomfortable spots. And I just feel like one of the things that has helped me along the way is, how do I work with the people who have been in or are in the position I aim to be in? What are the lessons and insights that they wish they knew when they were me, or I wouldn't say my age, but when they were at the stage of their career that they wish they had done differently? And, given the chance to do it again, how would they apply? And we'll go through those scenarios and we'll put ourselves in those positions. I've tagged along to board meetings well before the C-suite. I've tagged along to the toughest customer meetings, the toughest customer demos, the toughest renewals, the toughest QBRs you could be in. I forced myself to sit down in those seats in early days, be a fly on the wall, so that, if I'm ever put in that position, it's not only, familiar, but it's almost comfortable. And, like, just go back to being an athlete again, right? When you practice in those situations, when they come in the game, it should be easier than practice was. So I just would encourage anyone who's has aspirations to go to any level that's above theirs, spend the time and energy with the people who are in those seats. Get a sense of what they would do differently, how they would do it differently, lessons learned along the way. And if at all possible, tag along, be there, be alongside, see how they react in those situations, and then put yourself in that situation to see how you would do it if you would do it differently at all. And I just find that now this the hyper virtual connected, it's so much easier to do that. I mean, could you imagine walking into a tough room a couple of years ago? Now you're just another face or voice on the Zoom, and no one's the wiser. So putting yourself in those spots early and often, I think, just shape and mold you for what will inevitably happen when you ascend to the position you've been aspiring to achieve.
Yeah, yeah, no, really, really good advice, and I very much agree with that, and love the sports analogy there. I think it's very, very fitting. So,
Yeah, it's helpful.
so let's dive into your present role.
Yeah.
Tell us about, for those that don't know about Vivun, what do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vivun, you want to think about it, it's a pre-sales platform. And when I say pre-sales, I mean your most technical sales engineer, solution consultant. And it's a platform that gives them the tools to operate efficiently, automate some of the demos they need to scale, and then drive seamless collaboration with both sales and product teams. It's a fun role because in a lot of ways, I've always worked well as a marketer, product marketer, with the solution consultant, technical sales team, sales engineers, because they get the intersection of the product and the go-to-market. They are not product managers, but they understand the product at a level of detail that's required to make it make sense for an audience. And they also understand the market because, again, they're not marketers, but they understand what messages, themes, and hooks resonate with the target audience in a way that a marketer never could. And they're a little different from their salesperson because they're not managing every aspect of the deal, but they're managing about 50, 60% of the guts, which is the technical sale, to get it across the line. And this is an audience that hasn't been served or given the tools and the processes, and sometimes the resources to do as good of a job as they can. And so I'm really excited to be a part of what we do at Vivun, which is just to empower pre-sales to impact the product and go-to-market strategy in a whole new way. So multitude of tools in the portfolio, but the primary one centered on the ability to manage, scale your team, de-risk some of the sales forecast as an overlay of a technical point of view, automate the demos, align with the product team, and at the end of the day, demonstrate the holistic impact of the pre-sales role. I've been 5 weeks in and enjoyed every single moment of it, but it feels like home in so many ways because it fits so much of what I've done through my career and taking complex things, making them make sense, telling the technical value story, and hopefully winning more deals and securing more renewals and expansions in the process.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds like a definitely fills a hole, an important hole, in the market here. So this is your debut as a CMO.
Yeah.
What are some of the key responsibilities that you're in charge of now, and how are you finding? I know you're only a few weeks into the role, but maybe different than what you've done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about establishing role clarity. I think that's the piece where I've seen a lot of marketing organizations that I've been a part of and partnered with, and I've seen so many to say, okay, here's the best practice playbook I want to leverage. So having worked with some great CMOs, I have a piece of their playbook and some of their plays in my back pocket, which has been extremely helpful. But so much of the early days are establishing role clarity. And for now, we're a smaller team that I'm typically working in a part of. But it's fun because we get to control the end-to-end pieces. It's really about strong product marketing. So again, the value propositioning, all the things from launch to competitive to pricing, packaging, personas. That's the world I'm most familiar with. And so we're really getting into understanding positioning and messaging and reinforcing it with quantifiable outcomes and proof. There's the demand pillar, which I'm excited to now own and drive. I have a great demand leader who we're working to make sure that when we think about campaign workflows and lead flow and the opportunity to make sure that the database is clean and the opportunity to make sure we can kind of drive demand from some of our higher performing channels is a lot of fun as well. So that demand pillar is one that we spent a lot of time in making sure that if we have the right message and position, then our ability to scale and create demand should be a heck of a lot easier. And one of the traps I've seen is that you might have the best demand gen machine, but if that core position and messaging is wrong, if that core is off, the whole thing falls apart. And then there's this third kind of pillar that we've worked a lot with, which is really about customer and community. There's a whole world, particularly in B2B SaaS, and this, like it's a heck of a lot easier to expand a current customer than it is to get a net new. But I often find that most marketing organizations will put the same energy into the customer marketing side. And it's not just advocacy, case studies, and testimonials. It's the whole life cycle of making sure they have the tools to drive usage, expansion, and be satisfied and ultimately stay with your product for life. So we've really established just those three core pillars with operations underneath. So making sure we have the insights, the analytics, the tools, the people, the processes. And so with that construct, I feel like we can go do just about anything we need for now. And as we grow and as we expand to get more specialization is paramount. But for now, if we get those four areas right, we do feel like we can kind of expand pipeline and work with the sales team to accelerate that to go fund more dreams. So that's the goal right now, but it's really starting with those core pillars as the first set.
Sure. I love the pillars. Would love to hear a little bit more about your idea of the customer marketing community.
Yeah.
Do you have any initial kind of ideas on how you're going about that?
I do. I mean, I think there's a series of go-to-market strategies, one can employ today, and product-led's all the rage. But when you think about community-led and customer-led, there's a really fun angle of when you have underserved communities and you think about pre-sales as one, you can probably tap into hundreds, if not thousands of folks in this role who say, yeah, I have a point of view on how a technical sales process should run. I have a point of view on how to build a product tour or an automated demo sequence. I have a point of view on how to show up at the QBR. And I think a lot of vendors kind of immediately go into the realm of, well, here's a problem you had, and here's a technical solution we provide, but fail sometimes to tap into that massive community of not just their customers, but their soon-to-be customers, and sometimes their competitors' customers, to really harness and grab the thought leadership, the point of view you need to change the conversation. And so I'm really keen on making sure that we at Vivun not only build the largest, community of these folks on the planet, but also make sure that their voice is heard, make sure that their point of view is recognized, and why not use it as a flywheel to accelerate the development of our product and the execution of our go-to-market strategy. So it's not a secret. I mean, many companies have done this in the past, but I think a lot of times to overlook the ability to make your customer the center of everything you do from a developing product and going to market is a miss. And so why not put them at the forefront very intentionally and specifically, which is part of the draw of why I chose to be here at Vivun, because that category and that community is well established.
Yeah, no, really smart that you're thinking it that way. As you know, the tech industry has been grappling with extensive layoffs. Given that you're a tech company and
Yeah.
you operate in that space, and your clients are, I'm assuming, primarily tech companies, how are you steering through these challenges right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge for everybody. And I think the one thing that you can probably set your watch to is that most companies in our tech space or have heard the term do more with less. They've talked about efficient growth. The days of grow at all costs are gone. But I think the opportunity is to say, well, what does that actually mean? What does it actually mean to do more with less? How do you understand the resources you have at your disposal? And how do you get those resources to be leveraged in a whole different way? And so much of what we've done is not worry so much about here's another technology investment you have to make, but here's now a resource you already have that is already on the books, that is already funded, right? From a people and a process standpoint, that literally doesn't have tools, literally doesn't have workflow, literally doesn't have the things they need to operate as efficiently, and then tie that to the inability to do the things you want, which are win more deals faster. And I thoroughly believe that as product-led growth and buyer preferences around product-led growth experiences just increase, where buyers we talk to don't want to talk to a sales rep and have a pure disco or business conversation. They want to click the product, they want to try the product, they want to buy the product. And I think that in those worlds, you need a technical sales expert to make those things make sense. And to not empower that team almost comes at a detriment. So it's not the full way we've managed the recession and grappling with layoffs, but I think it forces us as marketers to get really creative on the way in which we influence the buyers and help them make the case when we're not around. And it's a different role I think marketers have had to play, because so long we've relied on the sales team to carry that lead we created from click all the way to close. We've done a better job in just the last 5 weeks of integrating marketing and enablement to really drive change at scale and accelerate the feedback loop of what we're getting in the market, to go feed what we build and to go feed how we execute. So we're not immune to these challenges, but we also recognize that one of the cheat codes that many, many organizations forget about is their technical sales experts. And so again, it's a great opportunity to tell a story that we know exists differently and give them the tools to be as successful as possible.
Yeah, right. Where do you see this sector going from a marketing perspective? I think you've touched on a few things that you're working on right now, but let's even go out a few years from now. Where do you see things changing and evolving?
Yeah. So, I mean, generative AI is all the rage, right? And so, like, we could punch that off the bingo card of things we're going to talk about today. But I think I saw a Gartner prediction that said something in the realm of over 30% of marketing messages and hooks will be like synthetically produced. And I think as we all kind of understand our use cases around generative AI, it's not so much to use it to create all of our content or create all of our strategies or create all of our reach, but really to scale our ability to do it quickly. And so when I think about the role of a marketer, so much of it used to just solely be around lead generation and putting up a great website and finding ways to get as many eyeballs onto your thing as possible. But again, sometimes forgetting that lead is only as valuable as your ability to move it through the funnel. So I definitely see marketing playing a bigger role in the broader enablement of change, whether that's with the sales team, the account management team. And a lot of times, Christian, the broader business, the broader business wants to understand what the heck's going on in our go-to-market. What's marketing doing to help us increase our odds that we hit our number and extend our runway? So I absolutely see the remit going beyond just kind of demand gen or product marketing or customer and operations to kind of a broader ownership of things that extend well beyond our brand, extend well beyond our ability to drive customer satisfaction and adoption, to influence the design of product is where I think we go. And again, I think with the advancement of the technology that help us do that, it helps us get in more rooms more often. It helps us take a point of view we've had, but talk about it and frame it in a way to an audience. We may have struggled to do that in the past. I think the imperatives on all marketers is not understanding how technology is just going to make things that you currently do a little easier, but how will it augment you completely to go do a whole new range of things that in the past you struggled to do, whether it's bandwidth, time, or talent, or a combination of the three. So I'm excited about what we have at our disposal. I'm more excited about what it means for us as a marketing team to expand our skill sets and level up along the way.
Yeah. No, it'll be very interesting to look back maybe, 3 years from now and see how the changes have accelerated over time. So definitely in a very exciting time for us in the marketing space. I mean, in any space right now, especially marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of our clients and listeners aspire to work in the tech space. Many of them actually already working in the tech space. What would be some of the lessons that you might give for agencies that want to work more at tech companies like yourself?
Yeah, I think so much of where tech companies struggle, and again, it's from they have great ideas and great technologists. They can build solutions quickly, and they're so used to being able to see pain and find resolution to it that they struggle sometimes to do some of the simpler things. Tell the story at scale. Make it make sense with context and analogies. Endear themselves to the people who don't know what the heck the problem set is and the implications of it. And so when I think about the tech sector, again, it's full of really smart, really intelligent, really capable people who are used to building the solution they need on their own, but haven't necessarily reached out or looked out to see, is this working? Is this resonating? Is the TAM that I put together on this slide actually being impacted by the work they do and looking out? And so I find a lot of agencies can provide a significant amount of value by helping them see around corners, see the broader perspective, see the broader picture, and then bringing insights that they either didn't know existed or didn't know had an impact on their ability to reach their goals. So a lot of times I find that, particularly with founders, they're going to have a point of view on everything they've done because they've done it since the beginning, right? They've probably raised chunks of money over time. They've had success, but they've reached a point. And where I think you can lean on agencies and the expertise they have is the ability to help them scale the feedback loop in ways that their team's not telling them, the way that their board's not telling them, to help unlock a whole bunch of efficiencies and opportunities. So stay the course, but don't feel like you need to be matching their level of technical acumen to have a seat at the table with them, because more often they need you very much and haven't quite framed a way to make that ask in an articulate way.
Yeah, well said there. So tell me about your internal marketing team. What does it look like? What are their main responsibilities? Are you looking to expand that team out with these pillars that you had mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. Think of those four pillars. And when I think about product marketing, I'm primarily thinking about positioning, messaging, and enablement of that change. And that will include things like launch. So anytime the product team builds a new feature or capability, how do you contextualize it and make it make sense for the folks who need to market, sell, and support that new thing? So I very much believe in a world, especially coming from Highspot, where I was for 2.5 years, enablement is a change agent and belongs, quite frankly, in the place that can synthesize and contextualize it. So I look at product marketing today as those two pieces, which are pretty meaty. It's your position, your messaging, the content and collateral you produce to carry that, and then the ability to get it through the machine to drive change. I talked a little bit about demand, but I absolutely look at things like brand as a core component. I look at the campaigns, the programs, the ways in which we move folks from hand raisers who haven't the first thought all the way to closed won opportunities is central to the demand strategy. It's the ability to make sure we have a clean, healthy, CRM database. It's the ability to make sure that leads and opportunities get routed the right way. There's a lot of work that goes into that, which is an operations pillar as well. And then again, I talked about that customer and community one, which is, again, how do I talk to existing customers about all the changes being driven, but how do I, again, endear myself to a community that is growing and thriving and, yes, wants to understand what the product does, but more so wants to understand best practices and how to apply it. I'm absolutely looking to grow the marketing team. In the future, we want more highly specialized roles around some of the nuanced activities we do. I think field marketing is a phenomenal example of a discipline that I've learned a lot about and seen the impact of. And you absolutely would look to scale those things. Your ability to manage channels becomes really important. So we absolutely would look to expand. We are just now in a moment that says, how do we build as much pipeline within our TAM as possible and ensure that the field can close those leads in a way that makes sense? And that will allow us to get to a place where more revenue means more opportunities and more investment. And we hope to repeat that flywheel forever.
Yeah. And where might external agencies come into the mix here? Are you working with any right now? You mentioned there, the perspective that they provide. Curious to know what that looks like.
Yeah, quite a few. I think agencies allow us to augment our own skills in a way where if we don't have the skills, the tools, the resources to do it, we will. I've had conversations in just the last 5 weeks and looking to dry ink with a few more on ways to create content at scale, way to take the narratives that we formed, our positioning and messaging documents, and then create the materials we need. I absolutely look to agencies to help us do that. I'm a big fan, obviously, from my Gartner days of primary research. How do we use agencies to tap into communities that we don't have access to? And how do we get them to drive the influence, to change the response we want in ways that fuel our dreams? Business development's another area. We think a lot about having not the most sales development reps in the world, but how do you augment your ability to kind of manage that value? So if we turned the machine on and all of a sudden we 10x the number of leads we had, we'd also need to make sure that our sales development, business development, account development reps to keep with that demand. So we look in those areas as well. But again, I get so much value in working with third parties and agencies because, again, they come equipped with a skill set that allows you to take the marketing capital you have to manage really well and generate a substantial return quickly. They have playbooks for how they ramp. They have playbooks for how they execute. They've seen organizations of your size, your stature, facing your challenges and objectives. So the ability to plug that in is just different than what you could get, I think, even if you hired some of the best FTEs, because they come with their own ramp times and nuances and opportunities for sure. But I think it's the ability to blend those skill sets is where the magic happens. So I absolutely incorporate as many agencies as I can throughout the mix. And I've done that whether I've just led product marketing, and I'm doing that now in my first 6 weeks as the CMO of Vivun.
That's great. And how do you find these agencies that you work with? Do you have a certain process, or how do you find it?
Yeah, I do. It's a combination of both. Like I talked a lot about networks before. I'm in an interesting CMO tree, having come from Chris Pick, who was my CMO at Optio, and the kind of looking at his direct reports from a few years ago. I think every single one of us is now a CMO, which is crazy. And so the ability to kind of go back to this person and ask for feedback and ask for advice is where a lot of the word of mouth comes to say, work with this agency, do this, don't work with this agency, do this. There's also, it's a small town. I'm here in Seattle, but as we've come digital, everything's pretty flat. But there's also sort of the local aspects of it. People that have worked for me have come from agency. People who have worked for me have moved on and worked from agency. So, the social aspect and the networking is a big piece of it. Rarely do I just kind of hit the web and just try to find a solution and see what pops back. I rely more on word of mouth and people I trust and have worked with to kind of vouch for them. And that's one of the faster ways in. The other side, Christian, is like I've worked with so many of these before. When I go to a new opportunity, they're one of the first folks I call. And I think a lot of the agencies that I've worked with will tell you that. It's just Jarod starts, send them a note, or he'll be sending us a note. And that's a great accelerator because they know how I work, they know what I expect, and we can put packages and opportunities together to move quickly. So I I mix a lot of it, but the most aggressive path is my own network. Who's worked with who's seen results and value, and who would vouch for you. So if someone's looking to get to me, it's probably going to be through my network with someone I know and trust and have worked with, and it's one of the fastest ways to get it done.
Yeah, 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 definitely. You got the know, like, and trust factor, already,
Yeah,
built in. So that's always great. So,
absolutely.
so I got one more question before we wind things down. Obviously, the market is changing very fast. Trends, industry news. How do you stay on top of things? Like, where do you turn? You come from Gartner. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah,
still one of your resources. I'm sure it is. But where do you go? I mean, is it social media? Is it trade publications,
yeah.
conferences, something else? Like, where do
All
you
the
go?
above.
Yeah,
All the above. I make it a priority to try to do at least 2 or 3 research notes a day, and that's not a joke. I will try to find a way to get my hands on some new insights, some new research, some new pieces, even in things that most folks would consider adjacent. I know one of the things we haven't talked about it, but I think one of the challenges a lot of marketers have, particularly for tech startup, is that they over-index when they work with a Gartner or a Forrester. How quickly can they get in a report? How many times can they get mentioned in a report? And they measure ROI based on that. It's not about that. I mean, that's a byproduct of you doing the work really well. But oftentimes, your relationship with a Gartner, a Forrester, or an analyst firm is rooted in the best practices that they communicate to their end customer buyers, the non-tech crowd. And I try to consume as much of that as possible. The other side of what it is yeah, social media is a big part of it. I think LinkedIn and the way you can set up feeds and have influencers influence along the way is great. Trade shows is another great platform. Sometimes they are from the Gartner and Forresters of the world. I just came back from the Forrester B2B Summit in Austin. It's less about the collecting the business cards and more around starting to build and forge some of these relationships. So it's all the above. I think the network I've accumulated has come from just about everywhere. And I lean on that network a lot to not only point me in the right direction of things, but for me to sometimes push and test and receive. And it's just great. It's just great to be symbiotic that way. But that is the best way I stay up. It's just I follow where the market's going from the people in it. I follow where the market's going from the folks who help shape it. And obviously I follow all of our competitors and partners. So it's a fun little game of who's doing what and how. And then another puzzle of and how do we do it differently in a way that allows us to hit our targets? That is the fun part about being a marketer.
yeah, yeah. No, exciting times and no shortage of information. This is no longer sitting in the library,
No,
and having a full book. There's almost too much information, just
it
having to
is.
sort through it. So,
Absolutely.
Jarod, this has been wonderful. For those that want to follow you in your journey, where's the best place that they can go?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is one of the channels. I'll communicate there a lot. I love connecting with people on that platform. I love to see what people bring to the table. I love to see what people are up to. So LinkedIn's the easiest one. And if there's ever a double click of that, if you ever want to grab a virtual coffee, I'm always game for it. I love to learn and I love to listen. And so if those opportunities present themselves, I'm usually one of the ones to jump all over it. But that's my primary platform of preference.
Excellent. Jarod, thank you so much for this. This has been, again, wonderful. Looking forward to following your journey and seeing all this great work that you talked about be implemented. So good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.